everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the PokerNews podcast. We have a very exciting episode for you guys today. Little something we've been talking about for a little while here, with no certainty that now we know a lot more about what's going on, and I'm talking about the World Series of Poker. We'll give you all the news on the World Series of Poker. Chad has an interview scheduled with Bernard Lee to talk about his latest book. Jeff is probably going to be over there pumping like whatever GGPoker has going on. So you guys definitely want to stay tuned to the show. Chad, you've been our sort of, I want to say you're our little like a spy kind of in the world of the WSOP. We get all of our juicy WSOP gossip from you. You did sort of see this coming. That being said, were you teasing us last week a little bit when you sort of said like, oh, I think maybe something might be happening, might be in the works? Did you already know?
Yeah, I pretty much knew that the WSOP dates were going to be announced. Now, granted, the actual dates did vary a little bit from what I had initially learned. They were off by about a week on each end. But right now, we do know that a live WSOP is scheduled to take place in Las Vegas at the Rio All Suite Hotel and Casino from September 30th through November 23rd. Now, this is all pending state and regulatory approvals. It is really subjective to what happens with the pandemic. But right now, all signs with the vaccine, with a lot of different mandates, a lot of different travel restrictions and bans, it's pointed in the right direction. Things are looking up and people are starting to plan that we are going to go to Las Vegas in September, October, and November. And by we, I mean PokerNews. Like, we are in the midst of that now. All right, what are we going to do for coverage? We were talking about it off air. What are we going to do with the podcast? So it's very exciting times. The schedule for it is not out yet. The WSOP, though, did release a few details. The $10,000 main event, which is, of course, the premier event of any WSOP, will run from November 4th through November 17th. There's going to be 4 starting flights this year. I think that's the first time since around 2012-ish that there have been more than 3. And I think part of that is just they're hoping to spread out the large crowd, because of these the pandemic and what have you. There's also going to be a $25,000 horse event and a $5 million guaranteed no limit hold'em tournament that is being billed as the reunion. And you know how the WSOP likes their kind of gimmicky events. And so expect a lot of those for this live series, but very exciting news from them.
I am super excited, actually. I feel like after doing it for 10 years or something, I just needed a break. Sometimes you just need to catch a breath, like take a pump on the brakes. But I'm super excited. And for those who don't know, ready yourselves, mark your calendars. November 3rd is my birthday.
Oh.
So I also will have already popped the baby out by then. I'm already planning to have some wine, go on the airplane, enjoy myself a little bit, have some fun maybe before the World Series starts, and then kick off that main event. I am so excited to kind of see everyone back together again, our little summer camp crew coming back together. But I was on the Rec Poker podcast on Monday, and they asked me, and I would like to put to you guys sort of the same question. Obviously, the way things are going in the United States, we're very much like ready to move on, dude. Like, let's move on. And we're seeing some record-breaking numbers in the live tournament scene here in the United States. Europe is not really having that exact same experience. A lot of things are shutting down still in Europe. They're in like pretty severe lockdowns in lots of places in Europe. And with such a world audience for the World Series, traditionally, I'll start, Jeff, with you. What do you think this looks like for the World Series 2021? How does this impact things?
I just think, you make a great point that perhaps the travel from certain countries will be a little bit less than in normal years, but the overwhelming attendance from just Americans that we've seen, that you referenced in these unbelievable live poker tournament turnouts at the Wynn, at the Venetian, over in Florida, really at card rooms across the country. It's been phenomenal. And so I think this has the potential to be a record-setting World Series of Poker. Now, what is holding that potential back are capacity restrictions, that we could see some capacity restrictions in play, that we could see some events limited to X amount of players. And I think, to Chad's point, that is indeed why there are 4 separate flights for day 1 of the main event. I would be extremely surprised if it were any more than 8-handed tables allowed. I'd be extremely surprised if there was no cap on the amount of players that they could have in certain rooms. Nevada has been pretty strict over these last 6 months, and they have loosened restrictions little by little by little. So it's hard for me to see, come October, which isn't that far away, Nevada being like, nah, just go for it, do whatever you want, just be like normal. So I think that will hold numbers back just a little bit, but I think the turnout overall will still be incredible.
I know they were talking about the attendance for the main event on the Fives podcast. Donnie Peters and Lance Bradley were offering their predictions for the main events, and they both kind of seem to believe that this could be the largest main event the WSOP has ever seen. Now, the record is from 2006, 8,773 runners. 2019, the last time there was a live WSOP, the main event came close to that. It had 8,569. So it was trending upwards as it is. And then, as Jeff mentioned, you add this pent up demand to it. It could be, you take in this other factor. This is in the fall, not the summer. So for the first time ever, you have the WSOP main event taking place during this time of year, which is football season. A lot of people just, more incentive to go to Las Vegas during the sporting seasons, if you will. It's just, there is a lot of ingredients here to make this the largest WSOP ever, especially now that we know here really 6 months in advance or whatever it is, they can be running satellites, they can be doing a lot of things to make this a huge home run.
And it's interesting because we, although I think we have so much focus in Europe, primarily because online poker is still legal in Europe, the reality is, even Chad, I'm looking at this article that you wrote last time we were at the World Series of Poker, which was 2019, which was the second largest in history, and that 6,110 players of the total field at the WSOP main event, of the 8,569 or whatever, like a vast majority of the field is American to begin with. So really you're looking at, 400 something players from the UK, 400 maybe from, the Scandinavian countries, which will obviously have a significant impact, but also realistically speaking, like people who have the kind of funds and ability to come to the United States to play the World Series of Poker, probably most of them are pretty solid poker players who have also been playing online for the whole last decade. So the American players can probably just be like, just eating the whatever, like the cat who got the canary or something like that. I feel like these American players are going to be even more excited than ever.
I think the WSOP took this whole location aspect into account, because not only did they announce the dates for a live WSOP in Las Vegas, they also announced the dates for the World Series of Poker Europe, which really comes on the heels of the American version. It's going to take place at King's Casino in Rozvadov, which is in the Czech Republic, from Friday, November 19th through Tuesday, December 8th. Once again, the schedule hasn't been released, but we know some details. There's going to be 15 gold bracelet events for that. There's going to be a 10,000 euro main event and a 50,000 euro high roller event. The full schedule should be released here in the near future, but it sounds like to me the WSOP said, look, we don't know what the future is going to hold for European players. Let's at least get something on the schedule for them, and those who want to try to do both, they can certainly do that as well, provided travel restrictions allow them to. But WSOP Europe is back as well.
And we have World Series of Poker online events starting in July, starting on July 1st. I'm really curious to see what the turnout for those would be. Last year, WSOP.com effectively had no competition in their online bracelet events. This summer, the Wynn is going to run a series. The Venetian is going to run a series. I don't know if Caesars will run another series at Bally's or Planet Hollywood, but the competition will be there, and I'm very curious to see how that will affect online numbers. We'll know a lot more about the actual online events come April 15th. That's when the World Series of Poker is releasing its online schedule. We know it will close with a 1K championship, but it'll be interesting to see those kinds of numbers versus these crazy live tournament fields that we've been seeing over these last couple months.
I expect the online events to be very cookie cutter from what they were last year, from what I've been told. I think, WSOP.com in the US is running the month of July. Last year, it was one event per day, 31 events total. I think that's going to be very similar, if not exactly the same. It's already been announced there'll be a $1,000 championship event, just like there was last year. And then afterwards, there's going to be an international portion, and by all accounts, that is going to be held on GGPoker once again. Not official yet, but there's no indication that it would be held anywhere else. And what's kind of interesting in this announcement to me was the WSOP announced that the WSOP.com will be holding all the domestic tournaments on its what they called the All American Poker Network, which is the first time I've ever heard WSOP.com referenced as that. And so in this situation, it's just referring to New Jersey and Nevada, but it leads me to believe that the WSOP at least has an eye on the other markets like Michigan, like Pennsylvania. Now, I don't think there's any chance that they will be ready in time for this summer's WSOP bracelet events. Things don't move that quickly, I don't think, but in the future, I think it shows you a little bit of their intentions.
I do think I agree with you with that point on Michigan. I do think they plan to have Pennsylvania in place and ready to go by this summer's bracelet events. And they also plan to have a new software, this Poker 8, that they've debuted overseas for the 888 poker software, the operator of WSOP.com. That hopefully will be in place by the time the summer rolls around. I think if you see the summer with just Nevada and New Jersey and the old software, it's already a letdown to start. I think a realistic expectation is to have Pennsylvania in the mix, to have bigger fields, and to have this new software, which will be a drastic upgrade over whatever this is.
Yeah, and for these online events, for the WSOP Europe, for the live version, the plan for PokerNews is to do our live updates along with plenty of other content, more podcasts, more videos, more streams, whatever they may be. So we'll be on it. I'm sure we're going to be talking about this now almost on a weekly basis, right? The WSOP is going to be dominating the news headlines. Jeff, like you said, the online schedule is going to be released here shortly. I imagine the live schedule won't be too much further down the road either. I don't know. It's exciting. The WSOP, it's been on everybody's mind for a year and a half, really, since after the last one ended, and then the 2020 version was interrupted by the pandemic, and it's just very exciting. I feel like because of this announcement, the WSOP is on the calendar, that things are a little bit more back to normal in the poker world.
And if you guys know anyone or are someone, I'm just going to throw it out there. We're going to need a big team, a lot of people to jump on board. And a lot of the team we've been traditionally using over the course of the last, 2 years of their lives have found other things or had to find their way into other, maybe more steady professions as things dried up in the live poker scene. So if you know people who are good at creating content, both for writing, for video, if you know people that are amazing on camera, if you know people that are great, at podcasting or live streaming or whatever it is, I think a lot of these things sort of fold over each other. People who just love the game, get after us. Chad heads the live reporting team. So if you know writers, editors, hit Chad up at Chad, A as in adorable, Holloway. And if you know people in the more digital space, such as videos, podcasts, or social media, hit me up at Aunty, AUNTY Chardonnay. If you're looking for a sponsorship from GGPoker, you can hit up Jeff Platt
Sponsor Pro, hashtag Sponsor
Jeff
Pro.
Platt. Okay,
he's gonna get hit by like 100 tweets.
Wait, I can just have to.
And Sarah, I can't help but notice that in that spiel you did mention you were looking for podcast help. So are you trying to get rid of Jeff and I, or what's going on here?
I just want to know what my options are. Just want to keep things open. We've been with each other for a long time. Sometimes you just got to spice things up a little bit.
Fair.
I do think we could use some people who could help us also, so that we don't have to do. This is something I've been talking a lot about. What's the best use of our skills and talent, and me and you editing might not be the best use of our skills and talents. Like those hours might be wasted hours better spent by somebody better at it than we are, while we put our pretty faces on more things. That's what people really want. Give the people what they want, Chad. More of your pretty face.
Well, I'll
More
tell you
of
what
Chad's dimples.
what people want more of, and they're gonna get it, is more Hellmuth and Negreanu, right? Because
Dude,
that
I'm
heads up
dying.
duel went down. Jeff, I know you probably know the most about it, so give us the lowdown. What happened in round one?
It was unbelievable. High stakes duel two of Phil Hellmuth coming off a win against Antonio Esfandiari 3 straight times, taking on Daniel Negreanu. Round one for 100K. They each put up $50,000, and Daniel Negreanu, just like he said he would, was absolutely coasting. They started super deep, and Negreanu was dominating. Had Hellmuth down from 100K to just 3,500 in chips, and then here comes the white magic, the apex predator shit. You know, whatever you want to call it, somehow, some way, Phil Hellmuth found his way to more and more chips and more and more chips and more and more chips, and eventually got the win, pulling off an incredible comeback. Phil Hellmuth beats Daniel Negreanu right away, as expected by all of us. Negreanu said, "Let's go, round two. I'm doing this, putting up 100K. Let's get in the mix." So the round two match is going to be for $200,000, and that will be on May 5th. But a pretty fair amount of entertainment value, I would say, from round one.
I have absorbed a lot of reaction after this match. Listen to other people talk about it on other podcasts, on social media, and what have you. And the general consensus seemed to be that Negreanu clearly played better throughout most of the match, and it was like a 6-hour heads-up battle. And then the structure came up. Hellmuth battled back and managed to win it because it got so swingy. And I understand that aspect, but I also take issue with those who say, "Oh, if this was like the Daniel Negreanu heads up challenge against Doug Polk, where they're playing cash game, the blinds never go up, and it was 25,000 hands, Negreanu would have absolutely destroyed Hellmuth." Yes, that's more than likely true, but that is not the game. That is not what was being played. This was a heads up sit and go. It was a tournament, and by nature, the blinds are going to go up, and it is going to get more swingy. And there is, in my opinion, some strategy to playing tight, to minimizing your losses, to try to get to that point where anything can happen. And Hellmuth kind of did that here. I don't want to take away from Hellmuth like a lot of others do. I think it was good for him. Like, he was the underdog in this match. Everybody was saying he didn't have a chance, that Negreanu was this huge favorite, but Hellmuth won. And yes, maybe that's being more results oriented, whereas Negreanu, I know, puts a lot of emphasis on just the process and not necessarily being results oriented, but the goal of this match was to win, and Hellmuth did that.
So should he probably just like give up now, or?
Well, he can't give up.
The rules,
he can't.
Yeah.
If he could, he would, I think. But
yeah, he tried to ask Negreanu yesterday on our No Gamble No Future. He said, "Daniel, what if we make the second match the end match, and then we can just be done?" And Negreanu's like, "Why would I do that?" Because in the high stakes duel format, for Hellmuth to walk away, he would have to win the first 3 matches. He cannot just run for the hills after match 2. So Negreanu's like, "Why would I just forgive my chance at another rematch?" And I think Chad makes a great point. Listen, that comeback is all time, and it was not just Hellmuth shoving pre, Negreanu calling, and Hellmuth winning a flip, or shoving pre, Negreanu calling, and Hellmuth winning when he was 40-60 or 60-40 or whatever it may be. He has a certain way with the short stack, and that sample size has grown throughout the years to be significant. I think you can say that Phil Hellmuth played well for him, that he deserved the victory. And I think you can also say that Daniel Negreanu dominated the match. Like, I think if you had the Negreanu side, then you had to have been confident with that kind of value at, minus 155, minus 160-ish, whatever it is. I'm looking at PokerStars now for round 2. It's moved up maybe a touch. Negreanu around minus 170, Phil Hellmuth at about plus 150. I think, Chad, and you tell me your thoughts, seeing those odds right now and watching all of round 1, I think I would have to take Negreanu at that price over and over and over again. What do you think?
Yeah, I can't argue against that. I mean, based upon what we saw in round one, Negreanu had the skills. He just didn't have Lady Luck on his side in a lot of regards. But that is a huge aspect in this. But I also feel like don't underestimate Hellmuth. Like he's not
Sure,
going to
we
come
always
into
do. Yeah.
right. He's not going to come into round two and not learn from some of the mistakes he might have
Sure.
made, or at least adapt to a lot of the things that Negreanu was going to do. And he's won 4 of these in a row. So I certainly wouldn't count him out. It would behoove him, just knowing Hellmuth. I could see why he would say to Negreanu, let's just let the second match be the end of it, because option A, he beats him again and he can always say, hey, look, I beat you, I'm the winner. Or B, Negreanu wins and then he can just say, hey, it was a draw, right? We were even, let's just walk away from it there. So if round 3 here is going to be inevitability if Hellmuth wins again, right? Negreanu will take it to the 3 matches. Whereas if Hellmuth loses this second one, I could see him just stopping, walking away, saying, we had 1 apiece, we're even, I don't need to do the rubber match, because if he does the rubber match and loses, then Negreanu gets to hang his hat and say, I won 2 out of 3. So I can see Hellmuth's perspective there. I kind of hope that Hellmuth wins the second one as well, so that he's just forced into that third one with Negreanu, and it comes down to that third and final one for the big money.
And then if we got a Negreanu win there, under that scenario, Hellmuth wins 2 in a row, Negreanu wins the third, somebody's going to step up to challenge Daniel Negreanu for the fourth, and now we're just talking bigger and bigger money. That'll be for $800K, and then the next one will be for $1.6 million, and so we're guaranteed of a fourth and a fifth under that scenario. So there are some really intriguing possibilities moving forward with this season of high stakes duel too. And Hellmuth said, Chad, basically what you said, that he's just not sure if he would take a third match, and Negreanu is more, just snap call, sign me up.
Yeah, and Hellmuth, can we just mention that 5-pound bag of Sour Patch Kids that he was eating at the table?
Where do you get a 5-pound bag of Sour Patch Kids?
At one of those novelty stores in the Las Vegas malls,
amazing.
right? Like the sweet shops where they have like the 5-pound Kit Kat bar or what have you. It's the only place I've ever seen them.
I've seen all these montages, that are just like Phil Hellmuth, like eating, like going like full David Hasselhoff at the table on all these weird high stakes, poker shows. Like, it's pretty gross, but I also think it's kind of like a fun trademark. And I have to say, when like reading this recap article, it's amazing, because I do think some of the fireworks and things that we really had expected to be exchanged between Doug Polk and Danny Negreanu, Phil Hellmuth was just like serving it up. And I have to say, like, whatever your thoughts are on Phil Hellmuth, he really just lacks a filter. And I've actually always supported him in times where I think this has gotten him into trouble, because I appreciate it in times where we can get it for entertainment. He says, it doesn't effing matter. I'm still going to beat you because you just give it away just like that. Like, oh, he is just coming for him. And then he's like, you might win this match, but I effing hate the way you played. Like, you played so bad, it's crazy. And this just like takes me back to like a Tony G, or like, I just love it when someone's able to just sit there and just say to someone right in front of their face, like, you are terrible, you are the worst, I'm gonna take all your money, and like, even if you win, you still suck. Like, I don't know, I really like, for whatever the poker itself was from an entertainment perspective, I think Poker Go made the right choice. And because we were thinking it was going to be Tom Dwan and Phil Hellmuth, right? There was like that's what Phil Hellmuth kind of spilled the beans. Maybe that's what it was going to be, which would have been a fantastic matchup, but it would have lacked this real the gravitas of this emotional thing. And really how Phil and Daniel are both these like OGs that are also kind of frenemies, that goes, I don't know, I'm loving it. I'm just like eating this up.
What you're saying right now echoes a lot of what other people are feeling, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said emotional, right? People like it, the average Joe poker player likes those players who are entertaining, who do have a little emotion, who might have a little white magic, as opposed to those who are studying solvers, really just memorizing things, acting robotic at the table. Now, I understand and appreciate that the latter is what it takes to be successful at the highest stakes, right? If you're going to play the high roller circuit or what have you, you really do need to get in the lab and be doing those things. But the average poker player, the guys at my home game, are never going to do that. They have no interest in doing that. And they love to see guys like Phil Hellmuth, who are a little more old school, who play a little more off feel, who are entertaining. And we've seen that out of Phil. Whereas, Daniel is still very entertaining, but he has adopted more of that solver, high roller mentality as of late. And nothing wrong with that. Like, I get it. And he is more successful playing those higher stakes than Hellmuth has been. But just from an aspect of your average fan, from a TV show production, I mean, I just feel like Hellmuth delivers on that front.
And Sarah, I've never heard you censor anything before. So when you gave I effing hate the way you play. What? Is this Sarah? Huh.
Oh my gosh, guys, I'm like becoming such a mom.
Yeah,
Look at
really.
me over here, just like doing little bleeps. All right, well, we of course have tons more interesting stuff to talk to you guys about. But before we do, we want to be sure to give a shout out to our sponsors, Elite Chip Care. We're moving into a space in this poker world where we're excited. We want to be playing live again, but that also puts us in a position where we have to figure out what's the best, most effective way as a poker room, as a tournament room, to be safe. And Elite Chip Care seems to have that covered.
Chips dirty and unsanitary? Elite Chip Care's ultrasonic cleaners kill bacteria and pathogens without using chemicals. Protect your team from potentially hazardous chemicals, UV, and gases. For daily sanitizing of your chips, our laboratory oven will eradicate most viruses using only heat. Up to 2,500 chips sanitized in just 3 minutes. Avoid the reoccurring expense of costly chemicals, UV bulbs, and gases. Safe, inexpensive, and sustainable. Visit EliteChipCare.com.
Well, we've got a lot of interesting news for you guys today, including some exciting announcements from PokerStars, and we are going to be doing next week, similar to, if you guys remember back in December, we did a special episode about the European Poker Tour. We got a lot of great feedback about that. I really enjoyed actually, producing and creating that episode with you guys. It was one of my favorites, I think, from last year. We're going to do a special scoop episode next week. So if you guys have any interesting stories or people you think we absolutely have to interview for the scoop episode, be sure to let us know before next Wednesday. And in the meantime, I want to talk about some PokerStars, some interesting choices. But also, Jeff, we shot this show last Wednesday, so you knew all this about Daniel and Phil last Wednesday while we were talking, huh? You knew all these things going on.
No. Now they did tape the night before, but I did not know a thing. I tell everybody who's there, I said, if you spoil this for me, we will no longer be friends.
Okay.
So all I knew was that it was very entertaining.
Okay,
I
good.
did not know. Yeah.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure, because like I'm the opposite. Like if you knew and you didn't like give me a little bit of, just like a little something to salivate over, we were gonna break up. But so PokerStars recently announced that they are bringing in Tonkaaaap and Sam Grafton as team pros. Now we've speculated about and spoken quite frequently on the podcast about PokerStars is sort of moving targets in terms of, how they want to build their team, who they want to have on their team. They've made some extremely drastic cuts in the last 5 or 6 years. Also, brought on a lot of, I think, new faces, some people that are gigantic celebrities who I don't know about, but the rest of the world clearly knows about, soccer players and things, to which I don't know how much success, but I think we've all pretty much agreed it didn't appear like there was a ton of success from some of those investments. We could very well be wrong. But we've talked a lot about the streaming components, and that it seems like these have been some of the more successful gambles, some of the better options. And really, if you look at the way the world is going as a whole, in terms of like influencer marketing and just reality TV, it's like people just want to have access to the people that they admire or that they like. And this streaming seems to do that. They sort of did a combo deal, I feel like, bringing on Tonkaaaap and Sam Grafton. Sam Grafton's just kind of a notorious, I don't want to say loudmouth. That's like a terrible thing to say, but
loudmouth in a good way.
You can always hear him from across the room. He's just very charming and funny, and he's definitely done some really interesting, I think, good commentary. Now, Tonkaaaap was an 888 ambassador for ages, also someone who's just very outspoken, very sarcastic. What I love about these choices, and next we'll go to what I'm curious, obviously, what you guys think. They're both great poker players, but what I love about these choices is they're both very outspoken people who are not willing to compromise on, you know, like following the line or like towing the company line, if you will. And I think for PokerStars, that's kind of a movement away from what they traditionally do. I think they tend to want to have more control over the people that they choose or that they bring on board. And so I thought this was a really interesting choice. Thoughts, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm certainly with you. I was surprised that it popped up. I just, for whatever reason, after they made those massive cuts that you referenced, I thought they were content with saying, hey, here's our team. It's online. It's basically Lex and Spraggy and Fenton, and we're good with that moving forward. And that makes sense because those three are awesome and they drew in really big audiences. So to see them taking that next step and bringing on a couple more guys, I mean, I couldn't speak more highly of Sam Grafton. I think he's great. I think he's so good for poker. Every live stream we do, we hope for a Sam Grafton side, and we hope for him at a feature table or a final table. I just think his personality is so welcoming to other players and to viewers, and he's self-deprecating. And like Sarah said, he can provide incredible commentary or analysis. And then Parker Talbot Tonka is just a different kind of streamer. A lot of guys you watch and they're just sitting there and clicking buttons, and Tonka will talk to the people and he'll say whatever is on his mind. So to bring in these two, they're bringing Andre Coimbra back, who I'm not familiar with, and then they're bringing on a couple of streamers from Pennsylvania. So I really like this move by PokerStars. I think because most of it is online based, they will see an impact on their market. It's always been tough to tell with live poker ambassadors and how much it translates to online. But I think if people see Tonka on stream and they see Squid, Sam Grafton on stream, I think it's really going to help PokerStars, and I think it was a good move for them.
Jeff just briefly mentioned it. The two streamers they brought on from PokerStars Pennsylvania, Mark Forresta and Keith Becker. This is pretty exciting news, actually. Well, I'm not too familiar with them because they do play in a certain region. These are the first ambassadors that PokerStars has signed in the United States in quite some time, and the first in that online market. Now, we've seen Party Poker US and BorgataPoker.com have their ambassadors, but here it's PokerStars getting into the mix, and I think it's quite exciting to show maybe those in Michigan and these other places, Pennsylvania, where PokerStars is making an impact and they're looking to grow that. Look, if you are an active participant, if you put yourself out there, if you're streaming, if you're building an audience, maybe it can lead to a sponsorship opportunity as well. And so I think that's pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to possibly covering the PokerStars Scoop event in Pennsylvania when that happens. And if we do, we'll certainly have to pay attention to these new ambassadors and their Twitch streams.
I think you're right. It's super, I always talk about how I think being a woman in poker is sometimes a little bit unfair because maybe you have more options or opportunities than, say, like your average white guy in America might have. And this really does maybe showcase an opportunity. So if you are somebody who is in a regulated state at this point, this might be your chance. Like, fire up a couple streams. Like, let's get it going. This is a pretty cool opportunity to get in with a huge poker brand and to build your own brand. And it's all about, everything we know in life is about timing. This would be a great time, I think, for a lot of people to kind of jump in the mix and try to make something happen. Chad, you want to talk to us a little bit about some what's been going down with Scoop before? Let's not spend too much time because we're gonna do a whole Scoop episode.
Right. Well, for starters, if you want to follow the Scoop action, PokerNews is doing daily live updates. So head on there, fire up the app, just look for PokerStars Scoop. I've been paying attention to the daily recaps and have seen some interesting names winning titles. I know that Laszlo Butas, I believe he goes by Omaha for Rolls. He captured his third career Scoop title, which was pretty exciting. He did so for $250,000 and by beating Fedor Holt's Heads Up. Also Michael Adamo third. That was in the 10,000 high roller event. And so it was just an absolutely stacked final table. He came out on top. Sarah, I know somebody that you're a big fan of from our days covering the EPT, Ole Shemian won a Scoop title already. And let me see who else we got. We got Simon Matson, Andres Nemeth. So we've got some fairly well-known names in the online poker space winning scoop titles. Like I said, there are a lot of events. There is a lot of coverage happening on PokerNews, and we'll really get into all the details and all the big winners in next week's episode, which is going to be 100% devoted to the 2021 scoop.
Oops, sorry, I was on mute and also stalking so many things. All right, cool. Well, I say, Chad, that it's time that we get into Bernard. Let's talk a little bit about his new book. He told me the title and I forgot, so I'll just put it on you.
Well, it's real easy.
There we go.
Poker Satellite Success by D&B Publishing, a great friend to PokerNews. They've been putting out some of the best quality poker strategy and biography books in recent years, and they got Bernard Lee to talk about satellites, which I think is very applicable probably to a lot of our listeners who might travel out to the World Series of Poker or might play on a tour like the MSPT or Run Good Poker Series, who can't necessarily afford to buy in for $1,000 or $10,000, but are looking for a cheaper route. Satellites are the way to go. And really, satellites revolutionized poker back in the 1980s. I believe it was Poker Hall of Famer Eric Draish who introduced the concept of satellites for the World Series of Poker main event. And now we've since seen them spread to all facets of poker, from live events and tours to even online play. So there are certain strategies that are applicable just for satellite play, and a lot of players aren't familiar with them. Like the idea of folding aces pre-flop in a poker tournament probably sounds insane to most people.
It's disrespectful to the game, Chad. Never fold aces. Sorry, Bernard, you never do it.
Well, in a satellite, there are certain situations where you might want to consider it, and Bernard talks about that in his book. I'll ask him about that and more in this interview with Bernard Lee. All right, I am with our guest this week, an old friend of mine. He's been around the poker world for quite some time, one Mr. Bernard Lee, and we're here to talk about your new book, Poker Satellite Success by D&B Publishing. Very excited. It came at the right time because it sounds like there's going to be World Series of Poker this year. A lot of people will probably try to satellite in. First, Bernard, thanks for taking the time to chat with us.
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, it's been a little while, and this book was a surprise to me. I didn't know you were working on this until it was really out, and how long have you been working on it, and how did it come about that you had the opportunity to write this for D&B Publishing?
Yeah, so it kind of came about in a long way. In 2014, Jonathan Little was writing his book, Excelling at No Limit Hold'em. And he asked several people, it was kind of his super system. And he asked several authors to kind of write a section. And he approached me and asked me if I would write a section, and what section would you like to write on? And I had been doing a lot of seminars and talks. I do a lot of seminars on the Run Good Poker Tour. And one of them that has always been well received was the satellite section. And so I said, hey, I could write about the satellite section. I feel like I'm pretty confident in that. And he goes, yeah, go for it. Let's do it. So wrote the section out, was put into the book. And for better or worse, when that came out in 2015, it was I feel like one of the best received sections in the book. I've had a lot of people ask me to sign the section. They showed it to me, highlighted. People have texted me and DM'd me and saying, I got my seat because of the section. And so the D&B, those guys at the World Series, and I believe it was in 2018, came up to me and said, hey, listen, this section, everyone talks about it. And people have been asking me, is there ever going to be a book specifically about this chapter? And so would you be interested in writing a full book about it? And I was really kind of surprised. I didn't bring it up to them. They brought it up to me. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. There were definitely some things I left out because of the length that you were allowed to do for a chapter. Right. And so it went from like 10,000 to 50,000 words. So that's obviously a lot. And I was able to put in a lot more things like real life examples and stuff about some deal making as well, which I think is not talked about in satellites. People don't even think you can do that. And we were supposed to come out in 2020. But of course, what happened? COVID. And so that kind of got pushed back. It's been ready for about a year. I think we just didn't do the final edits, and that kind of happened about maybe 3-4 months ago. And we decided to hold off. We decided to hold off around till April, hoping that there would be a World Series, but it's really good timing because obviously the World Series is now officially out there and people are obviously going to try to satellite into the main, and it's a good timing for the book.
Yeah, for sure. And I know the book you're referencing, I had a chapter myself in the Jonathan
That's
Little's
right.
Excelling at No Limit Hold'em.
That's right.
Great book. And like I said, very well received all around, especially your chapter. And one of the reasons satellites, I think, are so popular is because, well, the big name poker pros, the Hellmuths and Negreanus of the world, are of course just going to buy into whatever tournament they want.
Right.
For the vast majority of poker players, putting up $10,000 for the WSOP main event is but a pipe dream, let alone even like a mid-major, like an MSPT $1,100
Exactly.
event. I was just playing one a couple weekends ago and satellited in a $250 satellite. So
Right.
it's a great way to get in there. And you yourself have satellite experience when you had your very memorable run in the WSOP main event back in 2005.
Right.
You got in via satellite, correct?
Yeah, I did. It was a little bit of a weird way. For the actual World Series in 2005, I actually got in on a free roll, a complete free roll. It was, I forgot how many frequent player points, and you had to win it. And I ended up winning it. So it was a really weird way of doing it. So it wasn't a true satellite per se. But the first main event I had ever played in, which was the WPT at Foxwoods, I did satellite in.
Right.
And I worked extremely hard on trying to qualify because when I first started out, like anyone, $10,000, are you kidding me? I mean, come on. You can't just plop down $10,000 to play in an event. And so that really was something special. The irony is that it's kind of like when it rains, it pours. When you win your first one, it just kind of just, steamrolls, right? And so you start winning more and more. And at the World Series, obviously you have bracelet events, but there are some times where you're there for maybe like, I often go off for like 2 weeks. And there are some times where there's like 3 days where there's nothing to do, if you're not playing in a specific event. So I typically go down and I'll play the 8 o'clock satellite down there, and I'll play 1 or 2 days in a row and kind of get into a little bit of a rhythm. I will tell you, one summer, if it wasn't for the satellites, boy, it would have been a bad summer. So thank God for satellites sometimes.
Another famous satellite story in the poker world is, of course, Chris Moneymaker taking his $86 into to a main event seat in 2003 and then winning that for, I believe it was 2.5 million back then. But you referenced that in the book itself. I do think that's kind of like the pinup, right, of satellite success was Chris Moneymaker.
Yeah, in the book itself, I actually have a section about the history of it. And I'm actually very, very fortunate. Chris and I have become very good friends over the years. He's actually been the most frequent guest on my radio show. And he wrote the foreword to the book. He was very nice to say that he would write it. But I write a history section, and Chris Moneymaker kind of is like the current mark for satellites. But before that, we talk about Eric Drake, who is a Hall of Famer, who used to be the WSOP tournament director, who kind of invented the satellite. He even said, like, he didn't invent the word, he just invented the concept. And then also in 1983, when Tom McAvoy won the World Series main event, that's a really important time as well, because he is the first WSOP main event champion to get his seat via a satellite. And when it got Heads Up, after they eliminated a pretty big player himself, Doyle Brunson in third, Rod Pete finished runner-up, and he also got a seat as a satellite winner. So either one of them, whoever won, was now going to set history. So I do write a section in the book just about the history of the satellite as well, which I think is kind of interesting and fascinating.
One of the things about this book that it's kind of a catch-22 is that, I think it's great that there's this book. It's going to teach people to better have better success in satellites. But as somebody who likes to play satellites, and I feel like I know what I'm doing, like, it's going to make it tougher, right? It's
Sure.
teaching them some of the tricks, because satellite strategy is a lot different than other tournaments that people play. And I seen this at that MSPT I just referenced, where players, when we're near the bubble, we're just playing hands they never should be. They had the chips to almost essentially lock up a seat. And satellites are like the one scenario where you might want to consider folding pocket aces pre-flop.
Right. And I wrote a whole section on that. I actually wrote a column on ESPN.com about folding aces pre-flop. And it was one of the, if not the most talked about and commented poker column on ESPN.com. Everyone was saying, oh, what an interesting concept, to what an idiot. I can't believe Bernard wrote this column. Great. Take it for what it's worth. And about a year later, the exact scenario happened during a World Series circuit satellite for a circuit main event down in Atlantic City. And I was at the table. And you got to read the column, but the long story short is the person had the seat locked up. There were 3 players at the other table that barely had enough to go around. He played aces versus queens, and you know the story, right? I mean, we don't have to say it. What hit on the river? Mm-hmm. Boom, the queen, and he was knocked out. And it was just, one of those things where immediately I called my editor at ESPN. I said, it actually happened. I've got to write the column. He says, write it up. And so it went up right away, saying, everyone thought it would never happen. Guess what? I witnessed it happen. And it's definitely one of those weird scenarios that folding aces is something that makes sense. I mean, the long story short of it is aces heads up is going to win about 80% of the time. Sure. If you have enough chips to win a seat, which is 99.9%, you do the math. Aces are not a lock, and people always think that it is an absolute lock. It's not.
One of my favorite satellite stories that I personally had was I was playing an MSPT satellite, 1 in 5 got a seat. I think there was 21 seats were getting awarded and 22 were remaining. We were on the bubble. And for whatever reason, in that particular tournament, I had just run like God. I had literally 25% of the chips in play with 22 people still in the tournament. And so I had so many chips that I was guaranteed a seat, right? I could have sat out, and which probably I should have done, but I had so many chips in this instance where I could have doubled up the next biggest stack at our table twice over and still been the chip leader and still be guaranteed a seat. So with so many chips in that scenario, I wanted this thing to end. So I just started going all in blind every hand. And eventually somebody woke up with aces. I had 6-3 and cracked him. In fact, he's probably listening to this interview. He listens to the podcast. Michael Miller, I'm sorry to you, buddy. He'll remember that story. But
well, so one of the sections that I think is hopefully will be really well received is a section where there's real life scenarios. So I give people, there's not really a lot of charts in this. There's actually really not. There's a couple, I guess. But overall, I give a bunch of formulas, several formulas with regards to how many seats how many entries are needed for a main event seat, how to calculate the ending blind level, how to calculate if you have enough chips where you don't have to play another hand. So I give a section where there's practical examples, right? So you can try, this is the example. Now with all the formulas I've given you, what would you do? But there's a section, a chapter, it's the last chapter, which is real life scenarios. And it's about 30 pages long, where I give you all of these scenarios that literally happened in my career. These aren't made up. These are real life scenarios. And it's from taking advantage of knowing the ending blind level, knowing, when to not worry and when to play, how to help, how to make a deal, should you fold kings or not at a specific situation. These situations all happened to me. And I've described them in detail of exactly what happened. And I think people will find them very interesting because, like with anything, you need experience. And for you to read all of these stories, I think there's 8 stories. And if you read all 8 stories, it's like you were there 8 times. And so you gain that experience that if you're in this situation, that you'll be able to handle it yourself.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's a great way for players to get into tournaments, BM mid-majors or the WSOP main event, or really anything. It's called Poker Satellite Success by D&B Publishing. Bernard, where can they find a copy if they want to get one?
Just go right to Amazon and you can get it there. You can get it on D&B Poker as well, but it's really out there right now everywhere. And really looking forward to hearing feedback from the people that get it. I know that I've gotten a tremendous amount of feedback from the chapter, and I used to teach the seminar during, like I said, the Run Good Poker Series, and I've done it at the World Series circuits as well. So people who have come to those seminars and really, one of the greatest stories that I have, and it's happened multiple times. I did this at a Run Good event, did the satellite, and we usually do it like an hour or two before a satellite's run. And so we went through it, et cetera. And I remember this one person being really intently listening and came up to me, asked me some questions, et cetera. And it was great. I'm glad that they liked it. I left, I came back to start it was flight 1A. And she came up to me and she goes, I got a seat, and she was so excited because she's like, I totally listened to what you said. And there were two or three times where I wouldn't have done it, but because of you, I did it and I got my seat. And that's the joy of it, right? That's really the joy of it. So I'm looking forward to hearing those kind of stories as time goes on.
Who knows? Maybe it will be the World Series of Poker main event champion that gets in because of the book, now that there will be a live version.
It would be great. I mean, we really hope that a bunch of people get into the World Series main event because of it. And I'll be at the World Series, and we might do a signing or something along those lines. But we'll definitely be selling it, and hopefully it'll make a big impact. And like I said, one of the great stories about that chapter was I was at the World Series. We were in the Brasilia room, and I was showing somebody around the World Series, and one person, long story short, looked around, tapped their friend and went and pointed like, look who's there. And he went into his bag, he opened up Jonathan Little's book and went exactly to my section. And you could see it was all highlighted and rabbit-eared and the whole deal. And I could tell what they would like me to sign it. And I kind of tapped his shoulder and goes, would you like me to sign the book? And he just goes, oh my God, yeah, I love this section. And it was just really kind of a cool moment. And he was talking about how much he loved the section, and he's going to play a satellite that night, and et cetera, et cetera. And so, that's really the fun of what we do for a living, and to make an impact on someone's life. And hopefully they can play in a main event. Again, like you said, it doesn't have to be the World Series. It could be an MSPT, it could be a Run Good, it could be a Heartland Poker Tour, it could be WSOP Circuit, or even like your local casino that's having a local series and they're running satellites. This will help you in any one of those scenarios.
Well, once again, the name of the book is Poker Satellite Success. Find it on Amazon now, the D&B Publishing website. And if you want to keep on top of Bernard and his poker adventures, you can do so on Twitter at Bernard Lee Poker. Bernard, as always, it's a pleasure. And thanks again for taking the time to chat with us here on the Poker News podcast.
Thanks, my friend. Really appreciate it. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me on.
Kevin Martin from GG Poker here, and I just got to ask, have you heard about GG Care? Oh, you haven't? Well, guess what? It's the new daily promotion that rewards you for experiencing all the bad luck poker has to offer. The bad beats, the coolers, the suckouts, they're so frustrating. We hate them so much, but they cannot be avoided. But now, if you experience a bad beat on GG Poker, GG Care has your back. You'll automatically be registered to play in the next daily $30,000 GG Care flip out tournament. Here's the best part. You don't even have to be online for these flip out tournaments. Yes, you still have a chance for cash to go right into your balance. So remember, next time you're on GG Poker and you take a bad beat, GG Care has your back. So if you have not joined the fastest online growing website, then make sure you join the GG Poker community and join me at the tables very soon.
Kevin Martin, I swear, every time I hear his voice, no matter what he's talking about, and of course, when he's talking about GG Cares, there's a lot of heart, there's a lot of good things there, but he is just the most positive, like sort of contagiously positive person. You can literally hear it in his voice. You hear Kevin Martin and you just want to be his friend. Like, I just want to be around him. It might also be the smile. He does have one of those like really contagious smiles. But someone who is most certainly smiling at this point is Lev Gottlieb, who won 2 GG Spring Festival of Poker. It's okay, you guys. It's fine. Thank you. Spring Festival of Poker events in one day. Absolutely crazy. What a sicko. What a crusher. Chad, Jeff, either of you know about this?
Yeah, I'll take you or me, Jeff.
I think it's you, Chad. I think you're the
okay.
Spring Festival. Dead Mouse is in the mix with GG
Right?
now. I think you're the Spring Festival guy.
Well,
Chad knows who Dead Mouse is.
I'll cover this one, Jeff. You can get the next one.
Okay.
But yeah, for Lev Gottlieb, he goes by Lev Me Alone as a screen name on GGPoker, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Won these 2 events in one day, and they're not even, when I have covered winning 2 events in one day, they're usually small events, and these were far from it. One was a $10,300 Super Millions for $586,000. Then he took down the $10,300 Super Tuesday for another $320,000. Just an absolutely huge day. Obviously winning close to $1 million between these 2 events. Very impressive. He overcame 2 tough final tables in the aforementioned Super Millions. He defeated a final table that included Jordan Christos and one Damian Salas, the 2020 World Series of Poker main event champ. Alexei Boyka was there. And then at the Super Tuesday final table, he defeated a final table that included Tim Adams in 3rd place for $180K and Joao Vieira for $240K. He took 2nd place. So congratulations to Lev Gottlieb. Really made a big splash in the poker scene in one day.
And congratulations to Guillame Nolet as well. He wins the GG Spring Festival, the $25K, a $5 million guarantee prize pool. We mentioned last week that GG was going pretty ham with their Spring Festival, with Dead Mouse, with $150 million in guaranteed prize pools. They fell just short, kind of proving that this was a very ambitious guarantee. They fell short of that guarantee by 2 entries by $50,000. Guillame takes the win. He takes home more than $1 million on Josh Nemeth in 2nd, Ben CB in 4th, Matthias Eibinger, Elio Fox, Yuri Zivalevsky, Juan Pardo Dominguez rounded out. Just another stacked final table. It's fun. We got Scoop, we got GG, we got PowerFest in the mix. We're about to have the World Series of Poker.com online circuit events here in the States. We're thriving in online poker right now.
Very true. And just in poker in general, actually, as I've been interviewing people this last week and sort of reconnecting with people in the poker space, I've been trying to explain things are going great in poker. Like the rest of the world, I don't know, like if you're in the restaurant business, it's probably like been a tough time, but I'd say in the poker space, we've seen a lot of innovations and a lot of movements forward that I think we'll carry with us. And I think we took this COVID pandemic life and just turned it into something like relatively positive, albeit like, if people or love died, like sorry about that, but just as an industry, this is what's happening. And Chad, there's something I did want to ask you and talk to you a little bit about too this week. I did see, so everyone sort of knows that we were also listed in a suit from Mike Postle, which was, I think, more or less we discussed an anti-defamation lawsuit. We also discussed this on the podcast with Veronica Brill. This lawsuit was just dropped. Am I right? And this seems like pretty interesting news. And this also seems to have led to some other, I know you're our resident attorney, so I just wanted to talk to my consigliere and get his thoughts and opinions about what this means for, especially Veronica Brill, tweeted that like Mike needs to pay her back for her attorney's fees. And I think there's another group of poker players who are also listed in that lawsuit. I don't really know how PokerNews is falling into this. I've been ignoring it for the most part, dealing with other lawsuits, but if we could, Chad, what's your, professional opinion as the attorney on staff?
Well, I am certainly not an attorney, so this is just a layman's opinion, if you will. But yes, Mike Postle filed a $330 million lawsuit against many different parties, including PokerNews. Daniel Negreanu was in there, Joey Ingram, Jonathan Little, but also Veronica Brill and Todd Witteles. Basically, anybody who ever covered or chimed in with commentary regarding the cheating allegations he kind of went after for defamation of character. And 2 of them, Veronica Brill and Todd Witteles, filed an anti-Slapp lawsuit. Now, and those are what we know of. We don't know what was going behind the scenes with other others involved. And the anti-Slapp is, I think, fairly unique to California. And it basically, I'm no expert in this by any means. From my understanding of it, it's like you're slapping back a little bit, to pardon the pun, to say you can't file this frivolous lawsuit. They're fighting back in some regard. I don't know the exact detail. End up going to court. Mike Postle asked for a continuance because his original attorney and him parted ways. Was dropped by his attorney. I think the attorney requested to separate himself from the case and was ultimately granted that. Then there was some drama involving Postle getting some assistance from and excuse me, I don't know it off the top of my head. It's this entity that was founded by one of the fathers of a victim of the Sandy Hook massacre, where for those suffering from online harassment, abuse, defamation, this entity provides assistance, not necessarily legal representation, but just helps them in some regards. And it sounded like because of Veronica Brill's attorney, Mark Randazza, who had some history with Alex Jones and InfoWars and all that political BS, this entity really hated him, and so basically reached out to Postle and said, we want to try to help you out. Not really, I don't think, being too privy to everything that was going on. Anyways, long story short, in the last court date, they went in. Mike Postle asked for a 120-day delay so that he could find new representation. The judge ultimately granted him 30 days. And as that clock was ticking down, on April 1st, Postle filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuits against everybody. And it was granted. And now, because of this, you can't just file a lawsuit and then be like, I'm going to dismiss it. Like Veronica Brill, Todd Watellis, they hired attorneys. They have to pay for those attorneys. And when you are part of a case that you either lose or drop, you're usually on the hook to pay the opposing counsel attorney fees. And it sounds like that is going to be the case here. There have been other motions filed by the attorneys for Veronica Brill and Todd Watellis seeking those attorney fees, but we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. I did reach out to Mike Postle after this news broke to see if he had any sort of comment or wanted to issue a statement as to why he made this decision, but I did not hear anything back. And who knows? I've learned when it comes to this Mike Postle stuff that don't count on it being over, right? Things seem to spring up when you're least expecting them.
I was just going to ask, so does that mean this is finally over? But probably not.
I mean, I think it could be. Like, if he wanted to go off into the sunset, ends up paying these legal fees or what have you, it certainly could be. But remember, last year, both Matt Berkey and Phil Galfond said they were going to try to crowdsource a database of these hands. And so I don't know if this investigation is still going on behind the scenes or what have you. There really hasn't been any sort of update in that in many, many months. So kind of like I just said, it could be the end of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's another bombshell or two coming down the road.
I really hope that the next bombshell is that when you reach out to Mike Postle, he responds with like any answer or says anything. I like that you do your due diligence like every time, though.
I have had communications with him a little bit, off the record stuff. So we've had some correspondence. It has been quite some time, but as I have always told him, and it stands, and I'll say it here publicly, like if he does want to tell his side of the story, if he does want to get on the record, that I am here to help him do that, whether it's here on the podcast, whether it is just some sort of written article content, I don't know, but that opportunity is there because when one party remains silent and others are sharing their side of the story, it does come off as being a one-sided story. And like you said, I try to do my due diligence and do want to give that opportunity there. So if perchance he's listening to this, that invitation is still open there. You've got my number, shoot me a text.
You know my stance too. It's always, if you want a platform, Sarah Herring is just out here dishing out platforms. Whatever you want. Anyone who wants to talk, we're ready to do it here.
Sarah has a hard time saying no to people, right?
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care what you did. I don't care what your like stance on integrity is. You're welcome to come on the podcast if you have something important to say. All right, cool. Well, we appreciate you guys listening to this week's Poker News podcast. We look forward to next week's episode, scoop focused. I'm sure PokerStars will probably give us some of their new pros to talk to. I know Chad said he might reach out to Sam Grafton, which I know will be interesting and fun. And yeah, we'll keep you guys posted on all of that and on Jeff Platt's. You're looking very like ruggedly handsome today, by the way, Jeff.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
I did
thank
notice,
you. I very much appreciate that.
A couple times. It's like Jeff.
You want to
Okay.
you haven't told me how I look like shit yet this podcast, Sarah. So
and she even called you adorable.
Yeah.
But I didn't say that you looked bad. So there's that, right?
Believe it or not, I got a haircut yesterday.
I also didn't say you looked bad. Who is cutting your hair? I could probably cut your hair.
I go to a professional. She's my aunt, but she is also.
But she's also a pro.
Yeah, she's a cosmetologist. So I think honestly, this is going to sound weird, but less than 10 times in my entire life, and I'm 38, have I had my hair cut by somebody other than my aunt.
That's really cute. That's like super cute, actually. I love. What's her name?
Her name is Mary Jo.
Mary Jo Holloway?
No, not Mary Jo Holloway. Just we'll just say Mary Jo the cosmetologist.
Well, what if we could be getting her business right now? What if other people in Wisconsin want Mary Jo to do their hair?
You think those watching the video are looking at my hair and they're like, I gotta have that.
Yeah, and when they go in,
you know what she wanted to do?
I want the Chad Holloway.
You know what she told me yesterday? She's like, I think we should put some blonde highlights in there. And I said, this is not 1995.
The little Ryan Seacrest look.
Oh my gosh, I love her. Justin Timberlake, am I right? Yes. Yeah. Actually, she's right though, Chad. That would look really sassy. And I like it when you have your hair kind of like short, you know? I think that's a nice look too. You got to mix it up. You got to keep people guessing. You see Jeff's got the old like Frank Sinatra kind of like 50s vibe up top with like the rugged whatever's going. This is the kind of facial hair that I like the most, like an aggressive 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah, like a little bit more than that. Like I'm acting like I don't care about it, but I've clearly cared about it.
But like not a full beard.
Exactly.
So so Poker News audience, just so you know, that's what Sarah's into. Send me your pictures of your aggressive 5 o'clock shadows, and I will give you approval or non-approval. All right, cool. Well, like I said, you guys, let us know if you have any stories. Go ahead, and I actually went on iTunes the other day just to see what people have been saying, and we haven't had a review since July 2020. But rereading those July 2020 reviews made me super happy. So shout out to my peeps who wrote those reviews. And so if you want to leave a review, it makes me happy. It's just something that you could do. All right.
Hey, how about this? Wait, real quick. We'll end this. I'm sure I can give copies of Bernard Lee's book to give away, right? So if you listen to this episode, you've made it this far. If you write a review, you'll be entered to get a copy of Bernard Lee's
nice
Poker Satellite Success. So there you go.
As long as you promise if you get the book that you will not fold aces. You just have to put that out there.
And say Jeff Platt told me this.
Yep.
All right, cool. Deuces.
Run It Once is a brand new online poker site founded by poker superstar Phil Galfond, who has the player's experience at heart. Run It Once plans to make online poker fun and less predatory while providing ample rewards and innovative features at the same time. All new Run It Once players who download the software via PokerNews are entitled to a 100% deposit bonus worth up to €600. What makes this welcome bonus unique is that you can make as many deposits as you like for that first 30 days after your first deposit. This makes it perfect for those players who do not want to or cannot deposit $600 in one chunk. Be sure to check it out at once.run/pnpod. That's once.run/pnpod.